guys, this is Alex with Eastside Music School, and I'm with Don O'Brien. And we thought today we'd do a little Facebook Live to talk about Giant Steps, the John Coltrane song. I know that's one of your favorite tunes to play.
It is.
And I'm kind of a novice at this one, but Don's been working on it for a little while, so I will try and keep up. And we thought we'd start by just playing a little bit, and then maybe you can talk about what the tune means to you and some stuff that you like to play over it.
All right, let's give it a whirl.
All right, here we go. Cool. Well, that was fun. It is a monster of a tune to work your way around at.
It really is, and it's got 3 tonal centers that you have to navigate around, so it's a little bit of a challenge in that regard. But there's a couple of little tricks that make it a little easier along the way. First, there's 3 tonal centers, like I said, and so if you're looking at those 3 tonal centers, we're looking at B major, we're looking at G major, and we're looking at E flat. And if you notice that they're all lined up in a perfect third that divide the octave.
Okay. So kind of like an augmented
Exactly right.
major triad.
Exactly right.
But building major chords on top of that.
Exactly right. And what you can do with those major thirds is they're all connected by a ditone or a whole step. Okay?
Okay.
And so with that, you can even subdivide it into chromatics too, which is where we get into some fun. But let's take a look at just one chord at a time. First, we've got a 2-5 into B, right? So the 2-5 into B is C sharp minor, and then to F sharp 7, and then to B flat. This is the second half of the tune, by the way.
Sure. So just to pause. So we'll kind of tackle the second half because that's a little more digestible. The 2-5s.
Right. You can more prominently see the E flat, B, and G relationship.
Sure, and then we'll come back and try and get the first half of
Okay.
the tune. So the 2-5 into B.
2-5 into B, and
Okay.
then the next one is a 2-5 into E flat, so F minor to B flat 7 to E flat major.
Okay.
And then 2-5 into G, A minor 7, D7 to D, or G rather.
Got it. And there you get your 3 tonal centers.
Exactly right.
Okay.
So, all right, so there's a really cool relationship between those things, and that's where we try to find the common tones. So we're trying to improvise. We're trying to find where are the common tones between those 3 tonal centers.
Got it.
So now let's look at the first part. The first part of the tune, interestingly, has the outline of the first part of the melody is the outline of a G major 7 chord. Okay, and we have this. We start off in B major, and then immediately goes to a D7, which is the 5 of G.
Sure. Which for me is one of the biggest challenges is you only get 2 beats to settle into the key of B, and
Exactly
then you're
right.
off to the next key.
Exactly right. Especially at those fast tempos.
Yeah.
There's a few arrangements out there that are a little bit slow tempo. Pat Metheny's got a
He
great
does it as a
version.
bossa.
Yeah, and it's very, very cool the way he does that. So right off the bat, you're starting off as B, and then immediately you go to a 5-7 of G, and then immediately another 5-7 to E flat. Okay, and then now we go to a 2-5 into G, and then we do this E flat major 7 chord outline over starting on G. Sorry, not yet. And then E flat, and then again 5-7 back to B.
It's wild. And so it's kind of the same sequence of chords starting, first you start on B, and you follow this kind of outline, right? You do the same thing off of G.
Exactly
Immediately
right.
moving a minor third away to the 5 of E flat, a minor
right.
third away to the 5 of B flat.
Right,
B major.
and so you start to see this song, this beautiful piece, almost like an etude, which I think is a fair statement. It's
Sure.
an etude exercise, because if you take that same pattern, you could do the same thing over E flat, but Coltrane doesn't do that. He goes at 2-5 to bring it back into the original key. Another way to look at that, if you're into solfege at all, the melody note starts on the 5th of B major, and which is known as sol, right? And then immediately we go to the so of G, and then we go to the mi of G, and then we go to the mi of E flat, and then back to the so of E flat. And it does that pattern too. So you could think of it in solfege in that
So you
term
said
as well.
so,
Or sorry, so, mi, and then so. And then mi, re, and then back again. So, mi, so.
okay, neat.
It helps you to, when you know what those tones are, that's another food for thought when you're thinking about playing your solo, because you're
Sure.
hovering around those tonal centers.
And that is great advice, and something that I could certainly work on is really relating each, whether it's a melody note or a solo note, to whatever the parent key is. You can also relate it to the chord
Right.
that you're over. So
Well,
you kind
and
of
context matters too.
Yeah.
And so whatever pattern, then you start to think, okay, well, if I can do this around sol, then I could do that same pattern maybe around mi, or I could do that same pattern around T.
Sure. And I know this, I don't want to derail you too far, but I know that this song it really lends itself well to some patterns.
Right on.
Are there any patterns that you like to kind of play over this?
There's dozens. I would direct people to Slonimsky's Thesaurus of Scales, because that's where Coltrane got this inspiration. If you want to know exactly where, I think it's the subject about ditones, page 27. Not to be more specific, but yeah, I mean, there's thousands of patterns. Here's the thing. I do have some patterns, but you literally can take any pattern and adapt it to whatever scale is appropriate for that chord tone.
Right.
So, for instance, if I'm in the key of B major, right, I can take that simple little motif.
So la ti.
Sure. So la ti, and then I can go and answer it with a.
Now you're in a new key, so you.
I'm going to be resolving into the G now. And now I can take that same pattern and do it in G. And then resolving to E flat.
Oh, nice.
So
beautiful.
What's really cool about that is if you string the chords, and now this is maybe gets a little bit complicated, but keeping the pattern that Coltrane establishes that, you can literally do that pattern all the way down. So you can go.
Wow.
Okay,
Isn't that
so
amazing?
you can so that and there's thousands. You
Yeah.
can come up with your own, but that's just one. And if you could take it from there, then maybe you can take it from me, if you will. So all these little patterns can help lend themselves to what ultimately would become your vocabulary.
Sure. And so again, you're kind of going up the scale in one key and then coming down in the new key and up
Exactly
and down.
right.
That's
Exactly
fantastic. For like maybe somebody like myself who's still kind of getting the tune together, it's helpful to even simplify it and just think like maybe like a 1, 2, 3, 5.
Sure. Well, that's what Coltrane did. Absolutely.
1, 2, 3.
That's what Coltrane did. Sure.
Yeah. So when you guys are getting this together, I mean, you got to arpeggiate the changes. You got to figure out where the notes are.
But here, let's make it more simple, because right now we're talking about patterns, but one of the things that I spoke of earlier, talking about tonal centers and commonality between those tonal centers. So if I were to play the song and I just limited myself to 1 or 2 notes,
Sure.
how would I do that, right? So let's say I just pick So, okay? So here's So in B. Now that note has a commonality with my next key. It's the 7 of G,
Major
natural
7 of G,
but it's also the 3rd of D7, which is the next chord. And it's now the 7 of G. Now obviously when I go to B flat, I have to adjust.
Gotta move, yeah.
So I can go a half step either down or up. I can go down to the 5 of B flat, which becomes the 9 of E flat. And now when I go back to my G, I have to go up again to the half step. And now I'm back in G. And now I have to adjust to get to E flat again. So I can either go down to the 9 or up to the 3rd. And then back up to the 5 of B. So just so you can hear what's happening.
Let's try playing slow and do that if you
All right.
would. 1, yeah.
Go ahead, you do the tempo and I'll follow.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Find the gravity on any tone. So I did that on So. Can I do it on the Mi? So you're only half the step in either direction. So start on Do. I mean, Do's kind of boring, but you can still start on Do and find your pathway through that. One of the things I wanted to talk about, this song's got such a joy to it. Whenever you hear Coltrane play this, there's an enormous amount of joy when he's soloing and doing these incredible patterns. And so you can't help but feel this excitement. And for me, this feeling I get is like there's a slalom course, and Coltrane is like this Olympic skier,
Sure.
you know, just weaving this beautiful thread through the gates, and just kind of marveling at how well he's doing it and hitting every single one. Yeah.
And when you really get in, and I don't know about you, but for me, really get into a flow, it almost like the notes the lines take on a mind of their own. Like you're just kind of following them
They really
to their logical conclusion.
Right.
And almost as a performer, you become more of an audience member.
Right.
Just kind of watching these things unfold.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always happen, but it's certainly kind of what we're all chasing.
Right. And so while you're doing this, now you can start to see how you start to transcend in your depth. I mean, we start off slow. We don't start off rattling 16th note lines, but we start off slow and we build and we start to see, oh, that's a cool pattern. Can I do that here? Yes. Can I do it here? Yes. And then you start to realize that it's just, now for a guitar player, I think you might have some similar fingering patterns.
Sure.
On a piano, I've got white and black notes that I have to do a little bit of finger adjustment.
Right.
But the strategy is the same.
Absolutely.
And so you just find those patterns, and you just find ways in which you can evolve them. And so as you're playing these patterns, then you create an answer to that initial pattern. And then as you do that answer to that initial pattern, you keep doing it. So it's like a spider plant of ideas. You just
wheels within wheels.
Exactly right, man.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love thinking like that. And you know, it is a hard tune because the key centers are fairly far away, but it's also a really cool tune to work on because it by forcing yourself in these different constraints, you get to be really creative by limiting yourself.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and it's fixed too. When you think about it, the 3 tonal centers that's it, you know?
Yeah.
And because of that, it kind of allows you some freedom to play not just in the pocket, which we're kind of playing in the pocket right now, but as we start to branch out from this tune, we can start playing with the upper structure triads. So when we talk about upper structure triads, we're talking about the 9s, the 11s, the 13s, okay?
Sure.
And just to put a finer point on it, for a major chord, the 9, the sharp 11, and the 13. So essentially in the key of B, I could actually play in the key of, if you will, C major or D flat major. And that allows you some other color that you can put inside your solo that perhaps you wouldn't have thought of before when you think about this upper structure stuff.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and then you can take that idea through the different key centers.
Absolutely. And so you might end up with some sound like, you know, if you think about the upper structure, then here's a B. I'm using an F sharp major chord over a B. And then because I'm doing a D7 chord, I can do the upper structure of an E. And then I'm in a G, I can do the upper structure of that, which is a D. And then an upper structure of a B flat is a C major. And the upper structure of E flat is B flat major. So you get this kind of sound.
That's amazing.
And then you start to think, well, how can I break that down even further? And so then you can start to see that these are all whole tones, right? So you can integrate that with your either your comping or your solo.
It's gorgeous.
All right. And so then the next thing that starts, okay, now that we're introducing chromatics, then what we can do is introduce flat 2 substitutions.
So tritone subs.
The tritone substitutions. And so instead of playing in the key of E flat, instead of playing F to B flat to E flat, since I've got that chromatic thing going, could I go from F minor to an E7? Yes. And then to the E flat. And then C sharp minor to C7. And then to B.
Wow. You make it seem so easy.
Well, thank you. I hope so. That's the idea.
I think the key for me, because I'm still kind of at the beginning of the journey with Giant Steps, though, is to explore all these concepts, which are challenging but digestible at a slow tempo, a slow enough tempo that you actually have, and it can even be rubato, right? You can even take it at a time and just kind of explore these lines and where they want to go, and really start to get like a framework down, so that when you start going faster, you have that language.
Well, and I think starting slow, it on a lot of different levels. When you start slow, you are allowing yourself to sort of meditate. You know, every song you play in the real book, any jazz tune, requires a certain level of focus and intent. And ultimately, we're responding to what's my emotion about this piece? How do I want to express myself? And you know, your emotions are as diverse as anybody else's.
Sure.
And so any one time you could play that song, like you said, you can play it slow and sort of thoughtful and maybe even melancholy if that's your groove.
Yeah.
But ultimately, everything that you're doing is going to be fed from that reservoir of emotion that you have about it. So when you start off slow, you're able to more thoughtfully pick and choose what are the tones that I want in this. What are the songs? And you're discovering. It's a certain amount of discovery. And along the way, just like we learn language itself, our sentences become a little bit more complex as we get a little bit better understanding of it.
And allows you to kind of convey ideas a little more precision.
Absolutely.
A little more elegance and articulation.
Which, by the way, I'm glad you said precision, because when you listen to Giant Steps, there's absolute precision. No matter who's playing it, whether it's Coltrane or Michael Brecker or Pat Metheny or McCoy Tyner or Tay Montulu, all these guys, Joey Alexander, these guys have impeccable sense of timing.
Yeah.
And so when you're playing these lines, to really lock yourself into a metronome, and it's not meant to make you sound like a robot, because we're not robots, but when you hew to a tempo, you're imbuing yourself with a strong sense of time. You know exactly where those notes belong. And then so gradually, as you start to, when you get to a performance mentality, you don't need the metronome, but in that regard, you can expand and contract the tempo based on what your emotions are telling you to do, but you're still hewing to that sense of time. Really important. So yeah.
That's fantastic. I have a request. Can we try playing it as a bossa, a little down? Sure. Just so I can kind of try and incorporate some of these ideas you're talking about.
Sure.
And then maybe we'll double time it or something and let you just.
Can we do something like? Let's see, 1, 3, 4.
At a slower tempo, you really start, for me, because I'm still working on it, hear those melodies start to emerge and just little 2-note or 3-note fragments, you know? And I like that you could say, well, I'm going to start with this so of each note, or the mi, or whatever, and then you kind of get this cool parallel thing.
Right.
Or you're going to say, I'm going to start on one note, and I only want to move as far as I need to.
Right on.
And then you get really smooth lines, and both of them are kind of viable. And
economy of motion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's true not just for melody and for line making, But it's also true for comping. It's true for playing a bass line.
Sure.
So all of that stuff is very important.
Well, that's inspiring. I definitely want to go ahead and shed this one. Why don't, because I think we're about out of time, but why don't you play us out, maybe a chorus solo, just burn in tempo.
Oh, man.
Just go for it. What you practice it at.
Okay, all right.
All right, and
Right.
before you do,
Go ahead.
let me just say thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you are tuning in today, we're trying to do these Facebook Lives once a week with our various teachers. Sometimes they're more advanced kind of lessons. We'll also do more beginner stuff, and we love working with all levels here at the school. So if you're curious and you want to know more, check out our Facebook page, eastsidemusic.com, or come on down to the school and take a free lesson. We offer a free first lesson for all new students. All right, you got it. Why don't you play us out? Nice. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was fun. It was a pleasure.